Hello everyone, welcome to part 7 of the Xray T4 2014 build series. In this part we will be assembling the shocks. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and I've built 3 of the 4 shocks. Again, usually, as I say, to save on time, because it is a little time consuming, but you know, you'll only need to see me build one. Once you've seen that, obviously there's no point in me building 3 more. So I'm just going to be building the last one for the video. Now, the things you'll need will be pliers, side cutters. Obviously you wouldn't be needing the shock oil, and I have here some Team Associated Factory Team green slime. Now this is something I used for shock building. I find it better because not just Xray but other companies like Losi, Associated, Tamiya, you know, they say just to use shock oil for certain parts of the building. Now you'll be wondering what part of it would I use the green slime for. Well, I'll show you when I get to it. So we'll get ahead with the build. First of all, what we'll need is our shock shaft, and we have the E-clips or C-clips, depending on what you want to call them. And very carefully put them onto the shaft. Now, for the kit setup, you'll be using the 4-hole piston, and it's the 1.1mm 4-hole piston. Now you can't see it on the shock piston itself, but you will see it says it'll have 2 number 1s, one on each side, so 1 so 1.1mm. You have others that are 1mm, 1.2mm, and so forth, and that also varies between 4 holes, 3 holes, and 2 holes, I think. Just 4 and 3 holes. So the different thicknesses of the shock pistons also determine the way the shock travels through the oil. Okay, so now we put our piston on. Again, another C-clip. Very carefully click it on. You'll hear it click. There we go. Okay, so that's the shock shaft done. Now this is our collet for our preload. We just put the little rubber ring inside it. Just stick your finger in there. And this is a bit of old shock oil I've got. You use the shock oil. It helps it slide on the outer of the shock shaft, and just run it around like that. Pretty easy. Now we have our shock body. Just push it on. Careful not to cross thread it. And we'll turn it up all the way. Okay. Now we have a little silicone O-ring on there. What we'll do now, first of all, we'll get some. Now this is where the shock slime comes in handy. I like to put a little bit on the base first, just to smudge it around. Put the O-ring in. Then I'll put a little bit more green slime. The reason why I use green slime over shock oil, because it'll say to put the shock oil around the O-ring. I prefer to use the green slime for the fact that I find it seals the O-ring a bit better and the oil. So now we put a little plastic cover over the top of that. Then this last little collet, do it tight, Okay, now what we'll do is we'll put a little bit more slime just on the thread, just to protect the little O-ring. Don't need a lot on there, just enough for it to slide. Put that through, and it's with the towel, just get rid of the excess. Okay, now with the side, the reason why we need side cutters, because we'll have to attach the little end part of the shock shaft on. This is what connects the shock to the suspension arm. Now the reason why we need the side cutters is when we do it, we will put it right at the tip of the thread and where the smooth part of the shock shaft is. Now don't get it and really crunch down on it, because you could cut off the shock shaft, the thread of the shock shaft, and being an X-ray, parts will be fairly expensive. So now we put this on, and now we screw it on all the way till it touches the edge of the side cutters, like that. So now it's on. Sorry, it's on like that. Right, so now what we're going to do, because generally when you build a shock, what you need to do is you fill it with oil and you let it sit for about, I usually let my shocks sit for about 30 minutes, but I mean, I'm not going to wait 30 minutes and torque dribble for half an hour. So what I'll be doing is I'll be cheating, and this, what we do is we will fill it up all the way, then we'll push the piston up and then pull it back down to, because underneath there'll be some air bubbles. So we've got that. What we'll do is we fill it up all the way to the top, like so. Then we put the cap on. This is a shock pump, and I said shock pump, don't get it confused with something else. And we push down firmly. Now you can't really see it, but what it does is it actually sucks all the air out of the shock itself. So while that's happening, we'll continue with the last bit of the assembly. We'll put the top part of the cap together. Now we need the little bit of foam. This is what helps give the shock bladder, which is this part. It's proper form, like proper shape when it sits on the shock. Now we just where's my little, there it is, just a little Allen driver or hex driver, whatever you want to call it. Just push it in. Alright, now these shocks are what they call self-bleeding, and by that I mean, if those of you that are aware or have built like shocks before, you'd have to push it up, bleed it, like get it and tip some of the oil out, and it also will determine your shock rebound. However, these are a different kind of shock. They have a little hole, you probably can't see it, there's like a little hole about there, probably can't see it too well, but trust me, it's there. And what it does is I'll demonstrate in a second. Okay, so all the air's out. So what we do now, so for instance for my setups I like to have 50% rebound. So what that means now is to bleed it properly for the rebound, I push the shock up halfway like that, and I hold it carefully. Now what I'll do is I'll put the shock cap on, and careful not to thread it, and as I turn it, shock oil will come out of that little hole that I just showed you. You do it up tight Now I'll just wipe off the excess that's come out of the little hole, and when I push the shock up, when I push it up, it'll come out. See that? That's a rebound. So that's what we want. Okay, now the final part, we put on the little eyelets. These are what help connect the shock to the shock tower and to the suspension arm. So it clicks on like that. Pretty simple, straightforward. Now we put the shock spring on and the bottom collar, and there we have it, folks. There is shock. There is a fully assembled shock. Pretty easy. So folks, that's it. Stay tuned for part 8, where we will, it's pretty much getting along. It's pretty much the final assembly. Yeah, so pretty much the final assembly. There's probably another 2 or 3 parts to go, so stay tuned for the next part.